Hello. Hello. Hey Donald, how's it going? So we're going to record this session, and anyone who wants to catch up with the content later on can do. So this is, you've kind of seen that this is down as a key session, which is the knowledge and experience exchange. The whole idea of this was to kind of have a platform so people within the club could share knowledge, experience. We had some really good talkers in the past. So I think we had Adharan Finn, who is the writer of Running with the Kenyans, but we also had a lot of members talk. So Nick Harris-Fry, who works for Coach Magazine and has a lot of YouTube content about running gear. He also gave a really good talk. The background to this is, so if you ever want to get a talk set up, if you know someone who would be really good to share their knowledge, please approach them and get one of these sessions set up. Or if you yourself just want to give a session and pass on some information, please do so. So yeah, tonight, without further ado, we've got Coach Eric, or Dr. Coach Eric, level 3 certified English athletics coach, and worked as a GP as in his profession. So really some great experience for giving this talk. And as we've already said, it's going to be on the topic of running a marathon, both on the training side and the nutrition side. So Eric, I'll hand it over to you, and I'll have the slides ready for when you want me to start sharing them.
Okay, I try to keep it as simple as possible, and most of you probably have Googled marathon experience and training and nutrition to great depth. And for me, it's just to show you what I think is the most essential in preparing for a marathon, and some of the pitfalls. Nutrition, I don't think anybody needs much lecturing on that, but we'll get into it once we start the slides. So Dave, you start the slides.
Great, I'll just share my screen then. Right.
Okay, the next one.
Yeah, sorry, yes. There we go.
So these might be some of the questions you have, or if you experienced, you already answered those, but it's good to start out again. I saw from the questionnaire that some of you have very little time to run and prepare. A marathon is quite different from any other distance in that you need to get in some long runs, otherwise it's not going to end that well. Take the next slide, please. So are most of you going for the London Marathon, or is there a different marathon?
London.
London. Mark?
London.
Yeah, I'm London, although I might be chucking in the New Forest one, which is 3 weeks earlier, but I'll use that as a training run. But
okay, yeah.
London, yeah.
Pete, which one are you doing?
I'm not entered for a marathon. I was more sharing experience of past marathons.
Okay, good. Yeah, Aiko, what is your marathon?
Oh, Sam.
Sam.
Chester.
Huh?
Chester.
Chester. Oh, when is that?
Yeah. Same date as London, I think. So it's
oh,
2nd
wow.
of October.
Okay, Johnny.
On the 11th of September, I've got Vilnius in Lithuania, and then on about the first week in November, New York. I'm toying with I'm not sure if I'll do Vilnius because I'm going to be away for 3 weeks from Sunday, but I did do a marathon at the start of April and one at the end of May. So I'm particularly interested in how much you carry over the training.
Yeah. So New York be a good run up for preparation. So I think you need to train at least 3 months and ideally 4 months to be focused on pure marathon training. But it depends on what basic fitness you had from running or cycling. But if you see that Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France, maybe not totally honest, but his first marathon was the New York Marathon. He did 2:59, and is supposed to be the aerobic most capable man on earth at that time. So I'm not sure how it transfers if you're an amazing cyclist, but you could do some of your training in a different discipline. The other point is that if you start and you have injury or you want to catch up, you can't catch up too much. You shouldn't increase your workload by more than 10% a week. Maybe if you're very young and fit, a bit more, but you come to grief if you try to really speed up your training. Okay, next slide then. So how many miles do you need to run? So if you have no marathon experience whatsoever, 30 to 40 miles a week should be okay. But it's important you include a long run and you build up slowly to the long run, because that will get your body used to burning the fat and also the experience of just feeling totally exhausted at the end of the long run. If you're more experienced, like for example John, then you can increase the mileage according to what your body will take, and you can make the long run also longer. So up to a fifth of the time running can be replaced by other stuff and still gain from that aerobic activity. Yoga or strength sessions can be helpful, and whatever you do, if you try and train twice a day, I'm not sure if anybody would, always have one rest day, total rest day for your body to catch up. So there are some strength and yoga sessions at Orion, and I haven't attended myself, but I think they might be worth a try.
Eric, can I ask a question? Eric, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So obviously we've got there, say, for the inexperienced runner, 30 to 40 miles a week, including an 18 to 20 mile long run. So at the starting, what would you say? Like we're in week 5 now, for example.
Yeah.
What mileage should we be looking at now, for example? Building up to. I'm assuming that's the ultimate weeks, the 30 to 40 miles. Where should we be at the moment? Say week 5.
So week 5, you could be at 30 miles, but your long run might not be longer than 11 miles or 12 miles. And so you put a couple of miles onto it each week, and that makes your mileage go up, whereas your other runs will stay the same.
Okay.
And Eric, if I was running 6 days a week and I have my one rest day, I can go out and cycle on that rest day, or should I be?
No, it's not a rest day then, really.
No, okay.
Unless there's a train strike on, you're not cycling.
Okay. Take it easy.
Take it easy, really easy. Next slide. So what should be in your training program? The long run, as we said, but the long run needs to be easy, because it's not hard because of the pace, but it's hard because it's so long. So up to 2 minutes per mile slower than your marathon pace is still okay. And you should do some tempo runs, 3-4 miles, and tempo could be like we have sort of 5 to 10k pace, or tempo intervals, 1 to 2 miles. Because if you're not a very fast runner, then the 3-4 miles might be a bit too long. So it's better to do some tempo intervals, maybe 3 times a mile or 3 times 2 miles, just see how that goes. And also put a few races in, like a 5k, which could be a park run, and maybe put 1 10k in, say 6 weeks before your marathon.
And what about any half marathons? Would you?
I've seen too many people. I spoke about that with Donald privately early in the week. I've seen too many people who get so well in shape from the marathon training, and they put a half marathon in, say 3-4 weeks before the marathon, and they feel fantastic. and they set a half marathon PB, and the marathon is crap because I mean, it's just too hard. Unless you're a serious runner, you maybe do 80, 90 miles a week, then because the training is like saving money and racing is spending money. So if you have built up a large training chest of war, then you could do like Paula Radcliffe did, a 10K, and then 2 days later a marathon. But you have to do many more miles, and you have to build that up over a long time.
Eric, it's probably quite subjective, but if you are forced into taking a break, say in your 3 months of training prior to a marathon, what would you say is about the longest break you can take before you should just make a decision not to run the marathon? I know it's probably a really difficult question to answer.
Well, for most people, you find that after 3 weeks, all your fitness has gone.
All fitness is gone.
Yeah, and then because you're an experienced athlete, you get back much quicker than somebody who's never trained.
Right.
But nevertheless, it's a struggle. So let's say 1 to 2 weeks, 2 weeks at the most. But yeah, I think you lose a lot.
Right. Right.
Would that, Eric, would that be dependent, I suppose, on what your objective was, right? So if you was like looking to get round in 5 hours, it wouldn't really maybe matter too much. I suppose it depends on whether your objective is to get round in a certain particular time. Would that be right?
Well, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, if you like, Peter Andre did it in 8 hours or so, and he walked most of it, which and he probably got a lot of money for charity. But although I think what's the cutoff now at the London Marathon? It's very long, isn't it?
There isn't really a cutoff at London.
No cutoff anymore.
No. They had a lot of problems, didn't they, with the slower runners being booed?
Yeah.
And they gave that year where that had the problem, they gave the slower runners guaranteed entries for the following year.
Oh, okay.
But they don't really have a cutoff. So
good, because they encourage everybody to.
Yeah, it's meant to be a mass participation.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They're very keen on charity runners in London, much more so than any other marathon that I've ever run in.
Yeah. Exactly.
They also did that with Brighton this year. They guaranteed no matter how slow the slowest runner was, there would be someone running behind them from the organisation point of view to help them along. So they were encouraged to participate, I guess, is what they were looking to do. Same, I guess, because it's a charity event as well. But,
good. Yeah. Any other questions at this point, or?
Can you maybe how does the track like Orion track session fit into that? Would that fit in, do you think?
Look, the track will help you to become more efficient runner, because at that speed you need to get in the best form. But unless you're an experienced runner, there's a chance you injure yourself. And face it, you're not going to run the marathon at speed. Anybody of us, apart from these other 20 guys in UK, it's going to be just an endurance event. But it's not necessarily bad. It's just the risk of getting injured. That's
Eric, I have a question, and I did try and I mentioned Dave trying to get online. I couldn't get on. I've done quite a few marathons, but I'm trying to now vary my training, and I'm looking about hill reps. I've never done or incorporated hill reps into my training, so I need to understand a little bit about the benefit of hill reps and what that would look like. How big should the hill be? How many reps do I do? That kind of thing. And is it a benefit? Would it be a benefit for me? I think.
Well, I think the hill rep is a good alternative to a track session. But when I trained for marathons, I just went on the towpath because the marathon I envisaged is flat. But if you're going to do Boston, you want to do hill training. So the hill training is more like the sort of a strength. But yeah, if you've not done it before, be careful how you ease it in. And it has to be very shallow hill as well.
Eric, is that you going so far as saying then that track sessions in the context of marathon training are actually fairly dispensable?
I think you could do them with. I think you could do them without track training. But the benefit, as I said, is it probably improves your running economy. But the downside is that you might get injured. So it's better for an experienced athlete than for somebody who starts out. I don't think it will make them any faster. Yeah.
Right. Oh, sorry, Eric. What do you mean by running economy and to make you a more efficient runner?
Yeah, because you have to, because you put your whole body into the speed.
Right.
Having said that, I went to a 10-mile race, and there was a woman there. She had a very strange shuffle, and the race set off, and I thought, surely I can go past her. But I didn't. She runs like 59 minutes, and afterwards I asked Michael Cates and say, do you know who that is? He said, yes, that's the European 100K champion. Because she done so much ultra, she hardly lifted her feet. She was super efficient in that. So,
Eric, I had a question about track. Sorry, and just to clarify, I think John, were you asking kind of what you mean by running economy?
Yeah, and when you said it, that track will make you a more efficient runner, I'm wondering, efficient in what way?
Well, that you place your foot placing is better. Your posture might improve. These sort of things.
And by running economy, you meant like less effort for the same pace.
Yeah, exactly. Miles per gallon, but then as a runner.
Right.
So,
yeah. My question about it. Sorry, it's not. I haven't fully formed the question in my head, but something along the lines of. I just remember. I mean, I'm only doing my first marathon and training for that at the moment. I'm conscious if I'm doing a long run on Sunday evening, which I am, and then track on Tuesday evening, they're fairly close together. I think, based on what you said and what I've read, I think doing the track session does make sense, but it's a case of maybe of how I do it, maybe not expecting to do it quite as fast as I used to, and being realistic that my body's still recovering from the long run, 48 hours later. Is that the right approach, or should I sometimes just not turn up for it? Or
no. You can keep the track in, but your approach is the right approach. The difficulty is like when I see the track that it's like a stampede, and so you might be tempted to go with the guys who have a very different program and then and race them.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to go with a clear mentality of I'm doing marathon training, therefore I'm going to behave a bit differently.
I'm not going to go crazy. Yeah. And maybe have Monday your rest day then.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. So what's your time going to be? The more races you have done, the more accurate you can predict what sort of marathon you're going to run if you picked the right training. So I just put some examples underneath. So what you could expect, like if you run 17:10 for a 5K, if you're well in your speed, if you train for endurance, you should be able to reach a 2:47, and that's of course not that exact number. There's a big window around it, maybe 5 minutes slow, 5 minutes faster, but that should be possible. So if you look at if you have a lot of data on races and you look at all your data and say, for example, you do run a 2:47 marathon, but your 5K is 18 minutes, that means you're lacking speed. And the other way around. Although for women, the prediction goes a bit different because women are better in the long run, and they end up with a faster time the longer the race gets. So, yeah.
There are lots of marathon predictors on the internet.
Yeah.
Where you can just put in a time from a particular distance and it will calculate your marathon time.
Yeah.
And they're pretty accurate.
Yeah, this is like Macmillan. So you can run a half marathon. If you put in your time 1 hour 30, it will say, okay, your marathon time is 3 hours 15. It kind of makes a quick calculation.
Yeah.
Presumably it's quite crucial to get that worked out, because otherwise you're, I suppose, just have suboptimal pacing. I'm saying it because I'm really not sure what I'm aiming for at the moment, but I do somehow need to get my head around it, and I'm not quite sure how to, other than just doing long runs and seeing how they feel. I mean,
yeah.
And this process in front of us here.
Well, then, I mean, then there's the other point, which I won't mention in this presentation, but it's about race pacing, which so many people got wrong in the past and still get wrong, where you taper and you feel fantastic, and the amount of people in Orion who said, yeah, no, I did 61 minutes for the 10 mile. What was your marathon? Well, 3:40 or so. And people just blow up. So if you're inexperienced, you just be conservative and run it very restrained, and then you can use that energy for the last bit. Can't do it the other way around.
I find these times very interesting because I've done quite a few.
Yeah.
Marathon. So for a half marathon, I can do 150. Right now with a marathon, I find it a completely different act. So for me, with a half marathon, you can sort of go for it, and there's not that whatever it is. A full marathon, I've had so many bad experiences where it's an absolute pain. So I now completely run within myself. The last one I did was like a negative split in terms of my second half was quicker than my first half.
Yeah.
But so I just said the 150 half, but my full marathon was a 440. Now it felt very comfortable. So I'm just thinking to myself, should I now maybe, with the experience I've got, maybe try and push that a little bit faster? But for me, my kind of objective is to get round without hurting myself and enjoying it. I don't know. So maybe I should push myself a little bit more. What's your thoughts about that, do you think?
Well, look, yeah. I mean, so half marathon you can do maybe 2-3 times a week, a bit of training and still run really well. But the marathon, yeah, I would say the negative splits is the wisest way to run it. And if you look at people who done good times on the London Marathon, and you can see their splits, and then the people who had the negative splits, that's the smartest way to do it. And you might finish and think, hey, I didn't direct myself, but really, marathon.
Yeah, I think that's my objective. I think for me, it's just getting round without the pain, and the pleasure I get, I'll be honest, is the last 6 miles feeling really strong.
Yeah,
and overtaking people.
Yeah,
it's much better than the alternative. I tell you that, Eric. I when I did it the other way around, I flew across Tower Bridge, whatever time it was. I was on like a whatever flying 16 miles. I hit the whatever it was, and then I had to. I was getting overtaken by Jesus Christ on a cross. A guy carrying a washing machine. It wasn't a real one, but it was such a bad experience. So I vowed to myself never ever again. So now I like to sort of run within myself, I think, but enjoying the day, I think, is what I like to do.
I think that's absolutely right, Mark. My best times were negative splits, like you say, and always holding myself back till get to at least halfway, and then push. If you feel strong at halfway, you can start to push, or you can leave it a bit later even to start to push.
Well, you still get the last 6 miles, which is for most people the hardest, even for the elite. Then the kilometers or the miles seem to be very far apart suddenly.
And Eric, what would you think about? Some people just choose a pace and try and run the whole marathon at it. So one of these examples here, 6:51, they try and do a 3-hour, sub 3-hour marathon.
Yeah.
So they will just run that time the whole race. Or other people kind of take a different approach, which is say, for this block, I'm going to do 7:10, for the first 5 miles, and then I'm going to go to 6:55, and then I'm going to go to whatever 6:50, and then just try and hold it out for the rest of the race. What do you kind of think of approaches like that?
Well, yeah, like if you start in London, of course, you go down from Greenwich, so the first till you hit the Cutty Sark might be faster for that reason, and that doesn't mean you screwed up the pace. But you could divide it like that. It's of course it's the overall pace indeed. It has to be. but you could lose so much in the end if you go too fast in the beginning. So you.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I've run quite a few now, so I think in my opinion is the first half of the marathon. You can't run to feel. You've got to run to a discipline. You've got to sit because if you're running to feel in the first half, you're feeling great. Then all of a sudden, in the second half, you pay for it. So I think you've got to set your strategy out beforehand, run to a specific pace, and then, as you say, maybe the second half of the marathon, then you can start running. Because if you run to feel the first half and you're feeling great, you might pay for it in the second half. That's that's my experiences from it. Have a discipline. I think from based on your training, have an idea what you can run at and stick to that, and don't get carried away with the emotion. Certainly, if those guys have not done it before, don't get carried away because you will suffer in the second half. That'd be my thoughts.
Yeah. What's your experience, Johnny?
Yeah, exactly that. So Edinburgh, I did a very good. Well, shall we say, I was feeling very good. I was going along at about 6 15-minute miles for about the first 18 miles, and then it all collapsed spectacularly at about mile 18, including 1 mile, which took 11 minutes because I was at the side of the road cramping up. So I do agree entirely with Mark. I don't think you can run to feel. I think you've got to work out beforehand what's realistic. And that's the time at which you should run your first at least half or 2/3, and then you can make a decision what you're going to do based on what you're feeling.
Yeah, good, because like you got about 18 miles of sugar in your body, and then you start burning the fat, and that's why the long runs in training are quite important, because it's good to hit the wall in your training 22 miler.
The other thing to remember is that there are paces at London, and some people find it beneficial to follow the paces because the paces are very good at keeping a steady pace. Then you're not troubled by continually looking at your watch and worrying whether you're going too fast or slow. Of course, a lot of people do crowd around the paces, so there are some disadvantages. But generally speaking, they have a flag above their head, so you can see them from a distance away. You don't have to run right by them. But it's a good way of keeping a steady rhythm going. And if you've worked out what your rhythm is, what your pace is, then you can just line up alongside the paces. And every colour at London has those paces. You don't have to worry if you're a red start, green start, or blue start.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Pete.
Another factor with London as well is that there's so much congestion for the first few miles, is that whilst it may stop you running quick anyway, but it's good to just take that into account, is that you would be probably better off not to use up energy trying to overtake people and just plan for the slow first few miles. Because I did the London Marathon in October, and I think they changed the wave system slightly because of the COVID situation at the time. But I was pretty taken aback by how congested it was, and for a long time, we're talking 8 or 9 miles, and spent a huge amount of time weaving in and out of people trying to maintain a particular pace. I don't think I was really better for it, but that's quite exclusive to London Marathon.
Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. So there's that old saying, train too much and you won't make the start, train too little, you won't make the finish. So just be careful how you train, and don't get fixated on the time. I know 3 hours is everybody's holy grail, or maybe 4 hours or 5 hours, but on a day it could be a big window, and then you still should be proud of yourself if you reach that window. Can't just go focus on the one time. Next slide.
I was just going to quickly say, so Catherine, this is your first marathon coming up now. Are you just going to say, I'm going to go out and try and enjoy it, or are you in your head, you've got a time that you're starting to think about?
So my half marathon time from November, sorry, my washing machine, it's on in the background, is 1 hour 50.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I can look at the calculations and it still feels quite ambitious. And I think, right, if I do less than 4.5 hours, then I'd be happy. This is a lifetime opportunity to do the London Marathon. It's my first marathon, but being the London Marathon, I want to enjoy it. So I want to get to the start. I want to make sure my calf gets me to the start, and I want to get through it. And I do want, you know, I want to do well, but that's not the be all and end all. To do it and to enjoy it, that's the most important
It's
thing.
the main goal. Yeah.
It's going to kill me. I don't know how much I'll enjoy it, but you know, in theory, it's enjoyable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you prepare well, it will be enjoyable. If you don't prepare well, it'd be like these things in Mexico, the reenactment of the crucifixion of Christ. People go up a hill. So yeah.
I think you'll be fine, Catherine. I obviously know you've run with you. I think you'll be. I think a sub 4:30 is fine for you. What you need to be careful of is managing, you know, injuries and not overdoing it in training. If you can moderate your training, and like the previous slide said, you know, training too hard, you won't make a start. That's the challenge for you. I think if you get through the training bit, you'll be fine. You'll have a really good run, and will enjoy it. But I think for you, it's just managing that training, Catherine. So I know what you're like.
So just to put it into context, Eric, in it was 2018 or 2019 when I was training for my first half marathon, I tore my calf, you know, proper pop, and I tore it. So I jeffed that first half marathon. And then this year I was training for Halstead, which I couldn't do because I don't think I tore the calf, but the same one, it wasn't right. There was a weakness, it was hurting. So I stopped. I thought I was all right for around the Easter bank holiday, did loads that weekend, and it just went wrong again. So that's why I couldn't do Halstead. So what I've learned is that I might think I'm all right, but just to have more rest, not go mad, listen to people and plans to make sure my calf is okay.
Because if you remember, Catherine, we went for that 18 miler, didn't we, about February, March time, and you were struggling with your calf. Yeah, and we said, like I said to you, like, rest it a little bit. But you in fact, if I remember rightly, we got back to the car, and you were struck, and you wanted to do an extra lap around the green to get that whatever it was, round the number up, didn't you?
Yeah. Even numbers are good.
Yeah.
So maybe put in some alternative training like cycling or swimming as part, and to get stronger, do some core exercises if you feel there's a weakness there.
So what are core exercises?
With strength training. So maybe inside some aerobics or music or even Pilates, things like that.
Okay.
There's some good stuff on YouTube. There's a guy called James Thie, and he used to run for Great Britain, fantastic distance runner, and he does runners workouts. I mean, there's one of many people who's on YouTube doing this stuff, but it's all free content, and you can join it every Monday live if you want. I think it's like 6 or 6:30 p.m.
How would you spell his name?
James Thie.
Thie. Thank you.
So he still works for, I think he works over in a university in Cardiff, but yeah, he's still very much in the running scene. Really good core workouts. If you've, I think sometimes he requires a seat, but yeah, everything else you can just do in your front room. Just do dips off the seat sometimes.
Yeah. And so a few of the terrible mistakes you can make. I just only list a few because you can make many, but just force yourself. As you illustrated, Catherine, that doesn't work very well. Not tapering properly because you feel it's going so well, but you need to give your body a 2-week taper. That really will help to go fast in the race. Don't buy new shoes less than a month before the race because then feet won't thank you. Yeah, and there's so many other things.
Presumably new shoes that are exactly the same as like an old pair, that's not such a crazy option.
Sorry, say again?
I was just thinking, like say these marathon. I mean, just for example, I think I bought a pair of Vaporflies a couple of years ago, and by the time I do the marathon, I'll probably have done quite a few 100 miles in them. Potentially buying a new pair of those exact shoes is not so crazy.
No, but not in the weekend before the marathon.
Yeah. So as in to try them out at least a few times.
Yeah, try them a couple of weeks so you know they're going to be fun. Okay, the next slide. Nutrition. From our little survey we did, everybody seems to be eating very well, apart from the pizza man, but maybe that was a one-off.
Treat.
Yeah, sorry. So the nutritional science is very, very bad in evidence, and this is what we think is how you should eat at the moment. But there could be many other diets you've been following successfully for years, and if that's good for you, then that's fine. Like there's this book Feed in the Cloud about the fell runners, and they have bacon butties on their 6 or 12-hour runs. If that works for you, great, but it wouldn't be for me. So whatever you do, don't change your diet close to the marathon. You need to be solid in what you have now. But this is what everybody should eat, really. And then the more exercise you do, if you do 18 miles, you're going to get hungry, and then you could supplement it with sort of complex carbohydrates, so whole grain stuff. And yeah, what does everybody think about that?
Yeah, one thing that I found when I was marathon training, I was eating healthy, but I was always so hungry. I ended up feeling bad when, I'd just be so hungry that I just would grab some crisps and just start gorging on like peanut butter and stuff like this. What I ended up doing was actually just really increasing the size of my breakfast and my lunches and not feeling as bad then, because I was having so many snacks during the day. You start thinking, what am I doing here? But in the end, in the morning, I would literally have like 75 grams. On a day I was training, 75 grams of porridge with a load of nuts in there and some fruit. And that kind of stuff would see me through to lunch without just, eating 10 different snacks. That was one thing that for a period, I didn't feel good about it. But then once I started having bigger breakfasts and lunches, that really helped me along.
Did you have ugali as well in a training camp with other Anfi?
I did try. Yeah, I tried the ugali. It's a little bit like a mashed potato. It doesn't really. I know. What is it? Maize? Is it based on?
Yeah, it's made of corn. It's like polenta.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not like it's not something that's amazingly tasty in itself, is it? But yeah, maybe it makes you run like a Kenyan. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Next page, then, please. And so also, I know Orion Harriers used to be a drinking club with a running problem, but keep the alcohol intake low. It's not good for your muscles. And if you have heavy periods, then you should check that your iron levels are okay. Otherwise, you make it a lot harder for yourself. Otherwise, there's not any evidence of any supplement that's helpful. You should get everything from Mother Nature, like two Brazil nuts give you enough selenium for a day, and there's many other stuff in nuts which give you all these trace elements. And having followed a sports medicine program at UCL, the UK athletics doctor said that there's some people he had to really wean off zinc for a year, because if you take too much zinc, which is supposed to be good for your immunity, then you can get a copper deficiency, and so it's best not to get things out of a pot. And maybe if you're vegan or a strong vegetarian, you should get some B12, but nothing else really. All get it from Mother Nature. And then the other thing is good sleep is very important. That Team Sky, which turned out to be also a bunch of cheaters, but they had a guy driving around mattresses for the people doing the Tour de France, their cyclists, because they felt sleep was very important. maybe it was more their testosterone gels which got them the success, but maybe it was the mattresses, who knows. Okay, the next page then. So if you do a long run, it's important to correct your loss of fluid and through sweat before you start to feel thirsty or feel lethargic. So I think if you weigh yourself before the run and after, then you know if it's like 3 kilos. It's not that you suddenly got slim. It's the water you have to replace. And there are many recovery drinks, and some people like them, but quite a few have caffeine in them, which is not necessarily beneficial. If you want to make a cheap recovery drink, you get the fruit juice from pure juice from a concentrate or even pure juice, and with water, and that's easily absorbed. For the marathon, you need to practice the foods and drinks you can tolerate during and after a run. So most people take some gels, and it's good to practice on a run with a few gels. And the gel is possibly more like a placebo effect, because a gel contains enough energy for, I think, half a mile. So that's not going to get you over the finish. But it can give you a boost. But so can if somebody on the side of the street shouts your name. That is also good. Get some supporters.
So Eric, you wouldn't be a big believer in like a protein shake?
No.
A long run. There's not much evidence to support the use of those things. Okay.
All the evidence. So the sports science is so bad. All the evidence comes from people who make the stuff. There's a professor somewhere up north with a Danish name, Jøkendrup, and he works for the drinks industry. He's on their board. According to the people who make the recovery drinks, they say if you lost 5% of your body weight in fluid, you're nearly dead. But then that's exactly what happened. He wasn't dead. But Haile Selassie, who set the 2:03 marathon in Frankfurt, he set the world record. He lost an enormous amount of weight, but he was fine.
I was just going to ask about nutrition and like whether that's something that really holds people back. I'm just asking because I was reading about ultra marathons like UTMB and some of these big hill races. I got the impression like the number one reason people struggle with those is actually nutrition problems and kind of vomiting and all that. But is it fair to say that's not usually such an issue with marathons? It's more about have you got the volume of training in?
Yeah, with an ultra, it becomes very much more a nutrition and strategy, because beyond maybe beyond 50 kilometers, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, because you've got to then get like large quantities of calories in as opposed to just topping yourself up.
Yeah, there was a guy at Eton Manor who did the London to Brighton run, and he was an amazing marathon runner, but at 33 miles he just collapsed because his food strategy was wrong. And the same in the Comrades marathon as well, and the one in South Africa, which is 90 kilometers or 56 miles.
Yeah,
then the feeding becomes more important. Yeah.
I think Eric as well, from my experience, in incorporating your nutrition in your run has to be incorporated into your training and practicing what's the right amount. Now, for me, I don't get on with gels. I use jelly babies, but I know how many jelly babies so in my training, certainly when it gets to maybe more than plus 14 miles plus, I know in my training the jelly babies, amount of jelly babies I take, so when it's on the race day, there's nothing new. So I think for the guys who are doing this for the first time, I'd urge you practice not only your running, but your intake of stuff when you're running, so you get used to what's the right amount. Because the mistake, and I've made mistakes as well, where you overdo it, you're taking too much at one time, and that can make you feel sick. So it's about moderating it, knowing how much you take per mile, and it's sort of small amounts gradually over the race, rather than sort of like, you know, large amounts at any one particular time, and take them on before you start feeling hungry, because you can't replace it. So slowly and gradually, maybe after 3 miles, start taking stuff on, would be my view on it from my experience. So you're taking small amounts throughout the race, rather than bulk amounts in any one particular time, but incorporate into your long run training.
Yeah, that's right. Like if you practice with jelly babies, don't have gels on the day because you thought that would be a good idea. It's not. What you're used to is the most important thing.
And is there a training benefit to be had from maybe not using the gels until you need them? I mean, you're talking about trying to hit the wall in training.
No, don't. No, you don't. You need to keep it top up, because you can't replace it. Or Eric, you may contribute, but I think you need to be maintaining it before you're running on empty. You need to like maintaining your level, replacing it as it's being used is what I've found anyway.
Yeah, no, you can't overuse them in any way. So
okay,
yeah.
I mean, John, do you mind me asking, would you use gels when you're doing some of these long runs that you've been doing recently?
I used it in a marathon. I use a gel about. I try and use one once every half hour. I don't know if it makes any difference. In the long runs, in a 20-mile long run, I'll use 2 or 3 gels. So I'm not. I don't do it exactly as I would in the marathon. I can't speak either way for gels, whether they make no difference, much difference, a bit of a difference. I actually just don't know, but I use them.
Yeah. Okay. The next slide, please.
Eric, can I just ask?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Is there any benefit to eat? Is it better to eat before a long run, after a long run, or does it not matter?
For me, I've been running fasted because I need at least 3-4 hours, otherwise I get indigestion.
Right.
And then I keep reading that it's great for cycling and other things to run fasted. But yeah, it's a very much a personal thing.
Right.
I mean, some of your energy needs to go to your stomach for the digestion, some of your blood flow. So, but in the long run, yeah, I mean, you could eat before, whatever suits you.
Okay, but there's not any particular benefit either way, because I keep hearing about fasted running, and I'm not convinced, because I really struggle to run if I haven't eaten something a bit sometime beforehand. But I'm
yeah, no, so that's fine. Yeah, they haven't proven it, and there's a theoretical advantage that your cells become so keen then, and they will absorb more glycogen after you run. But that's all theory. Nobody's proven anything really useful there.
Right.
So I can recommend this book about why we not all die when we run the marathon, that we're so exhausted and pushed ourselves too much. And it discusses the 2-hour marathon attempt as well. It's a fantastic book, and it goes also about nutrition, and like they experimented people to go on a higher fat diet, and their athletic performance was much poorer. But maybe if you train for a longer time on a high fat diet, 6 months or 9 months, that could work as well. So but it's a very interesting book. And then the next slide, please. And this is it's a bit dry and very, very detailed, but it's a great book about anything you want to know about running and training. I got the English version, and then I read in French running magazine a few years ago when it finally was translated in French, that they said we've all been training too hard. That this guy recommends that you take it easy on quite a few of your runs. So that's the essence of the book. But the book also starts with the position. You've done some races, that's your proven fitness at the moment, and you train according to the proven fitness at the moment, not about what you dream about and you want to achieve. So if you run a 35 10K, 35 minutes 10K or a few, you don't pick out the charts for running a 33 10K just because you think you should be doing that. You should train within what you've proven before, and the same goes for the marathon. Okay, that's my presentation. Any other questions?
Eric, the 2 marathons, it happened in Edinburgh and it happened in a marathon I did last year. I cramped up in the last 6 miles. Is there any solution that you know of to avoiding cramp? Where
was the cramp? Which
a combination of thighs and calves, both at the back.
And your hydration was good?
I don't know. And the 2 times it happened was in warmer temperatures, so I'm wondering if that did it. I have to confess, I'm worried about drinking too much water because I don't want to have to stop to go. So
no, that's the downside.
Yeah. So I suppose it's my hydration I wouldn't consider bad because I didn't take no water, but I maybe didn't take as much as I should have. I don't know if that was the cause of the cramp, whether it was overexertion, going out too quickly. I just don't know.
Yeah, I followed a lecture from a professor in mycology in muscles, and he couldn't really explain what the cramp was.
Right.
So some people feel it's to do with the electrolytes. But nobody is sure for sure. But if you think it might have been the heat, then perhaps do a training in the heat and don't drink very much. And if that cramp comes up, then it's your key. I mean, it's a bit of a torturous experiment, but you find out a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Or
I was going to say, like, so how are most people training? How are they putting training plans together? Do they kind of just write something down on a calendar? Are they using an Excel spreadsheet? So I don't know, Sam, what are you doing now? You've got Chester coming up in a number of months. Are you just kind of saying, well, normally on a Monday I'll get out for a run if I can, Tuesday I'll do track? How do you kind of work out your week?
I'm sort of following one that I downloaded off the internet, and I edited it a bit to make it slower, to make all the paces slower.
Yeah.
Because it felt too much unrealistic. But it seemed to be fairly structured, and it's working quite well for me, I think.
Okay.
There's a lot of kind of tried and tested plans out there, isn't there? So I'm sure it works. I'm sure though, if you have your plan and you've got some questions and you're at the track on a Tuesday, you can always ask Eric.
Yeah.
I'm happy to write a plan if you tell me what you want and how much time you can spend on a plan. Then make a plan.
I mean, the interesting thing for me about this one, it's a ASICS one, but the reason I chose it was because it had quite a lot of sort of structured like tempo and interval sessions where they weren't just like, like run 5 miles easy and then 3 miles fast, and then it was a bit more kind of interesting, where they'd be like we kind of run splits where you get 1 mile fast, 1 mile slow, or just had a little child come in. Hello. All these people looking at you.
Supporter.
Yeah, it's gonna come and support me. So that's why I chose it, but it's sub 3 hour, and that's a bit fast for me. So I think I added on, sort of 15 seconds to all of the speed work, because it felt that when I started it at that pace that it was just too fast, and it's the first marathon, and I also I think I don't want to be, like you said, not make the start by being too ambitious.
I think with the first marathon, the good thing is whatever you do is going to be your PB, right? So I think for me it's you don't know unless you've done it. I think that the rather than the training dictating what you do, I think it's the other way around. You'll dictate your training. So you'll have the plan, you'll know roughly what sort of runs you do. I would just dictate the paces, how you feel with the things, right? So if you're comfortable at a certain pace, you're comfortable at that pace, don't be driven by the plan. I would get the plan to be driven by you. It'd be my, especially the first one. I've done a few now, so I you know, I'm not particularly quick anymore, but I know how I feel, and I, you know, my plan's driven by me rather than the other way around. And I think, you know, as long as you're getting the miles in, don't be driven by the pace. Do it by yourself. You know, how you're feeling, and if that pace feels right, then great. But that would be my guidance, especially if it's your first one, because it is a different kind of race, a marathon, and that would be my guidance. You know, see how you feel rather than be what any particular plan, because the plan is very, you know, it needs to be specific, and it's not, they're very generic, these plans, they're not that. So it's really about yourself, really about yourself. See how you feel when how you're getting along with it, and then adjust it accordingly, I think.
Yeah, so you did the right thing by slowing down 15 seconds, because that's how you felt.
I really need to work something out, because I've just been making it up, just trying to crank up the mileage steadily, primarily through long runs. But I do have a challenge that, like, things feel different on different days, and time is sometimes a bit unpredictable as to how much time I've got. And I also want to keep climbing, which I really enjoy, and that, you know, sometimes makes difference how I feel. So it feels like I need a more pragmatic approach. But I think at the moment, having zero plan to even kind of, it's not like I'm ignoring a plan because I haven't even got one. I think I should probably get one like you have, Sam, by the sounds of it, and have that to bounce off.
A question I had as well is about park run on Saturdays. Which is probably Donald also going to them most weekends, but whether you can keep doing park runs on Saturdays as a race, or whether you need to tone it down, or how often you can do them. And
yeah, I mean, you could do a few as a race, but the other ones should be more like a tempo session. Because if you really race eyeballs out, that eats into your other training. If you do a fantastic PB on a park run on a Saturday, then the long run is going to be hard the next day. Again, unless you've got a large volume of training, then you can do all these things. So yeah, don't race Donald. Do you race in the same one? You race in the Peter May one?
Yeah, I'm going to that one more at the moment.
That's a slow park run as well.
That's a horrible one.
I'm not racing Donald either. That's
oh, okay.
What is this?
Was there any other questions for Eric?
Just a comment that I'd like to make was about the psychological side of racing, of marathon racing. I think the psychological side is also quite important. You focused quite rightly on the physical side, but the ability to visualize, I think, is quite useful on a marathon. You're going a long distance, you have periods of discomfort. And I think it's really, really good if you can visualize positive outcome at the end, before and after the race. I think if you can keep a positive image in your head, that's really, really helpful. It gets you through the down bits, because, you know, inevitably when you're running 3 hours, 4 hours or more, you know, you're going to have periods of relative feeling down. So having something positive in your head is a very good way of overcoming those dips.
No, that's true. Sports psychology is underused. Most people go for doping instead of.
Also, to Peter's point, there is also like break it down into small chunks. So you get the 6 miles, then you get to 10 miles, you get 13. So you have a little, you know, little chunks. Don't think of 26.2 at the start, because it'll go do your brain. So you get to 6, then you get to then you get to 6. Now I'm going to think about 10. So it's only 4 miles. Then you get to 10. It's only 3 miles to 13. 3 miles. To 13, then 4 miles to 20, and then you're in the home. Then it's like almost like a park run. So break it down into small little bits, and you know, that's the way I kind of think about it. Do it that way.
I have a question. So for a few months, my calves, they would feel rock hard. They'd feel really sensitive to being poked. Sometimes cramp in the night. What's the treatment? I would have a couple of massages, and I had the needles as well in my,
Yeah.
in my calf. Is it massage? Is it stretching? Is it both?
You could go to your GP and ask to be referred to the sports and exercise medicine at the Homerton or to UCL, because that's a bit long if you really backed up the training and it still causes a lot of pain. And then they can have a look. Maybe there's something wrong with your Achilles, chronic inflammation. There could be many things, but somebody needs to examine you, and you need to tell them the story. Because if you're sensible, your body should recover unless you run yourself really into the ground, which you have some examples from at the club as well. But yeah.
Catherine, did you try to change your trainers as a solution?
I hadn't.
No. That's
sorry. When the injury was really apparent, I had done 18.5 miles. I did my longest run, and I did it in the wrong shoes.
Because I mean, I hate to tell people try other trainers because it's an additional expense. But I had calf, ankle, Achilles trouble, and changing the trainers for my long runs, getting more padded ones with a bit more give in them, and the pain just went away. That has some...
So the ones that I wear, I can't remember the name of the shop, but I don't know whether it's still there. It's near to Liverpool Street, a little lane that you go down.
Right.
Houndsditch, it's the runner's work.
Yeah, that's the one. So I had the gait analysis, but I have thought about going back, whether it's for the same pair or a different pair.
Yeah.
For some confirmation for a long distance run.
I hate to blame the trainers, but sometimes it can be the cause, and changing them can be the solution.
Well, yeah, there is some American fashion for these very neutral trainers where there's no heel at all, and I think that is called loss of people grief, because they're less popular than they were. That's where these Vibram finger gloves. I don't know if you've seen them, John. It's like a rubber thing on your toes, and then that causes a lot of people grief.
I just had a kind of open-ended question, which maybe is not really a question so much as just something I'm going to think about a bit more. It's just to do with kind of training in relation to heart rate, because obviously putting in a lot of miles, potentially in the summer, doing long runs, getting a bit dehydrated, potentially spending quite a lot of time with your heart, working pretty hard. I just worry that that's maybe not optimal for health, and I'm just myself going to try and think about, if necessary, dialing back the pace in training to kind of optimize heart health, I suppose, because at the end of the day with a marathon, presumably your heart health is really important, and how well your aerobic system is functioning.
Yeah, I mean,
I just wondered, has anyone read anything like about heart rate training for marathons that seems like convincing?
Well, there's this American guy whose science is abysmal. What's he called? Some people follow him and then run really slow. I think Raffle runs really slow on that. There's a Maffetone method.
Yes, yeah, I've read a little bit about the Maffetone method. Yeah.
No, I mean, if your heart rate in the morning is higher than you usually you expect, then it's possibly a sign of overreaching. What's overtraining called these days? In a race, if you're very dehydrated, of course, it goes up because the blood needs to circulate. So if there's not enough blood, then it needs to go faster. And that's you get like what they call a cardiac drift. Your output doesn't improve, but it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
Is a marathon running healthy? I don't know. Just don't do too many.
Too many marathons, but yeah, even just how you do one, I'd have thought, there are different ways to do it, but yeah.
When I ran Manchester with John this year, one thing that I tried after many years of running was if anyone's got the app Headspace, which is kind of meditation app, but there's something on sports competition, a little bit what Pete was saying, visualization, some of this stuff. Some of it's a bit too hippie for some people. They won't get on with it, so don't bother if you don't like that kind of thing. But if you've ever tried it, the one thing that I got in races, especially like long distance, was I got very negative with myself. So I'm like, why are you slowing down? Why are you being so lazy? You know, a few choice words chucked in there, and I get pretty negative with myself. And what I found was I'd slow down, and I found it a lot harder with going through like a course on that, and kind of, you know, how you can kind of manage that kind of negative self-talk. That was actually very good for me. But yeah, as I said, it's maybe not something for everyone. If you're on Headspace, worth giving it a go. Right, okay. No more questions? Should we finish it there then?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you
All right
all
then.
so
Thanks very
much.
much, Eric.
Thank you very much to Eric and everyone for joining
Yeah.
that. And
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye.
Thanks for organising, Dave.
Cheers, guys. Nice one. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.